This video will contain spoilers for Undertale. If you haven't played it, go do that, you idiot. Undertale is 10 years old. Really let that statement sink in. There are people who can walk and talk who have never lived in a world without sans. I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse. Undertale is the product of internet composer, game developer, and dog Toby Fox. Back before Undertale, he was pretty well known for his presence in the Mother community and his work on Homestuck's music. Please don't make me explain Homestuck, please. So, when he announced an original project alongside a Kickstarter, people were supportive. Very supportive. And that was merely the start of the explosive growth Undertale would see over the next few years. Undertale has influenced so many creative people, started a shit ton of careers, been the catalyst for lifelong relationships, and generated a library of fan works so dense you could call it the 8th wonder of the world. And in this video, I want to pay tribute to all of it. This video isn't a summary of the game, or even an analysis. I think both have been fairly overdone on this site, and I'll link some of my favourites below. That means I'm going to assume you at least know what happens in the 3 main routes of Undertale, so I won't be doing any recaps. What I want to do is discuss Undertale as an entity, the game itself and the stuff it spawned. Why does it mean so much to people? How has it still got people talking about it to this day? And what can we learn from all this? Well, let's find out. Okay, that's a really hard question actually. Undertale can be described in a lot of ways, but I think the easiest is by its tagline. The friendly RPG where no one has to die. Emphasis on the has to, by the way. The story follows you, a human child who's fallen into the underground, a kingdom of monsters sealed beneath a mountain, and your journey to escape back to the world of humans. Throughout your adventure, you encounter the underground's quirky denizens in turn-based battles and are given the choice to either fight or spare them. Now, as simple as the system may appear today, I think it would be an understatement to say Undertale's pacifist mechanics resonated with a lot of people, and for good reason. Undertale is home to a ton of lovable encounters in every area. Every Frogget, Whimsun, and Moldsmal is characterized through your interactions with them in battle, which makes it really rewarding to figure these guys out and end a battle peacefully. This idea gets elaborated on in the boss fights against major characters, which often require you to think outside the box or outlast a series of increasingly difficult attacks to end the conflict without bloodshed. And that's not even considering how these themes are weaved into the gameplay. In battle, your soul cursor defaults to the fight icon on the very left of the screen. Acting out of kindness always has to be a deliberate effort. Then there's the fact you don't get any EXP from sparing enemies, which means you can't increase your max HP, and as a result, will have a much rougher time overall the less monsters you kill. You could even consider Undertale's EXP as being an in-game version of those shitty morality meters from CRPGs, and makes doing the right thing almost like a self-imposed challenge. This all feeds into one of Undertale's most prominent themes, that being using subversion of classic RPG tropes to expand its story. The first time someone plays, they're unlikely to have a full grasp of the implication of Undertale's meta elements, and may treat it like any other RPG. A lot of people I know who played for the first time ended up killing some early game enemies, and received a less than satisfactory ending. But these flawed endings are also accompanied by a challenge to do better. The game makes it clear after the fact that it's possible to get a better ending, and that you don't in fact have to kill anyone. So what if you just reloaded your save and tried again? It's all just a video game, right? Well, despite everything you'd know about how save systems work, Undertale remembers. This is yet another way Undertale subverts player expectation. See, in Undertale's universe, many of its gameplay mechanics are diegetic, meaning they happen in-universe. Characters really take turns in battle, have HP and stats. Hell, it's implied that bullet patterns used in battle are cultural, and a way that monsters in the underground communicate. But the most notable diegetic mechanic here is your ability to save and load the game. Every time you die or reload your save, you are physically warping the world to your will, and pulling everyone back with you. If the implications of that aren't horrifying enough, the game puts you on the receiving end of it at the end of a neutral playthrough. By who? Why, just the best character in the fucking game. To make an explanation of one of Undertale's best characters relatively brief, Flowey exists as a parallel to us, the player. Due to a very convoluted mix of childhood suicide pact gone wrong and MK Ultra level experimentation, Flowey gains the ability to save and load the game, an ability he lost once we arrived on the scene. Later on, we learn that he soon exhausted all his options and grew disenchanted with the whole underground. And depending on how thoroughly you comb the game, you may find yourself treading the same path Flowey once did. But ultimately, we get the choice in whether we choose to use our determination to give the underground the best possible outcome, or exhaust every number, statistic, and line of dialogue just to find out what happens. So yeah, that is technically what Undertale is. But why do people like it? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we don't have all day, so we're gonna have to do a bit of a lightning round. The reason Undertale's story works is that the game makes the player attached to the world, and especially its characters. The main conflict of monsters being sealed underground isn't just sad because it's unfair, but because throughout your journey, you become intimately familiar with how everyone is coping with the situation, because you learn these are good people who are grieving, or feel wronged, or even just trying to make friends. For example, Undyne works because in the lead up to her fight, we learn how unbalanced the war between monsters and humans was, and how desperate the population of the underground is to see the sun again. She represents the hopes and dreams of her people, and is recontextualized from being a terrifying force of nature to a force of justice who only wants the best for her people. And even past that point, once you spare her, once she finally loosens up and is on friendly terms with us, we get to see some of her vulnerabilities, the people who she looks up to, her relationship with Alphys, and her friendships with the Skeleton Bros and the members of the Royal Guard. I'm not bringing up Undyne because I think she's the best character in the game or anything, but because she's a really good example of how much Undertale humanizes its characters, even ones who are, yes, trying to kill you. She's a very real feeling individual who has a history and presence in the world, and that's a hard thing to pull off, especially with a large cast. There's a reason basically every character has their own dedicated fanbase, even the ones with only a few lines or none at all. The more you progress through the underground and learn both about the history of the human monster war and the tragedy of the Dreamer family, the more this story almost feels predestined to tragedy. Which is what makes the fact that your decisions do matter and you have the capability to grant everyone their deepest hopes and dreams so compelling. It's also what makes the fact you can reset everything to square one and rip away their happiness so tragic. I don't think I'll ever forget the feeling of seeing Flowey basically beg us to stop playing the game. That wouldn't work if some part of us didn't care about this world and its inhabitants, and I think that's something we should commend Toby Fox for. Also, I really don't know where to fit this in, so I'm just gonna drop it here. Undertale is a very queer game, and trying to deny that is completely fucking stupid. I'm a cis dude, so I can't speak on how good the representation in Undertale is, but growing up, this game was one of the first times I saw queer people in, like, anything. I've met people who didn't know girls could date girls or boys could date boys until they played this game. I know a lot of people who Mettaton was really eye-opening for, and I think it's great that he's able to exist while also being an interesting character by his own right, with plenty of flaws and relationships to analyze. Ultimately, seeing positive rep like this is a big step in making people more empathetic towards others with different life experiences. So seeing that in a game like this, that prides itself on having friendship and kindness be a central theme, is really cool. Undertale is an RPG with random encounters and turn-based combat, and to some people, that might as well be the Antichrist incarnate. And while I'm not here to examine the validity of that stance, I can say that Undertale does a lot to separate itself from typical turn-based RPGs. For one, the game features a dodging mechanic, a la the Mario RPGs, only instead of timing a button press, the game turns into a miniature bullet hell game, with you controlling your soul and dodging enemy attacks. This starts off fairly simple, but as time goes on, new elements are introduced, like blue attacks that only do damage if you're moving, or orange attacks that have the opposite effect. Then there's the different soul modes that alter how the game controls. It keeps the combat feeling fresh, and adds an air of spectacle to some of the more important fights in the game. Even now, I think Toby Fox and his team are only just scratching the surface with this system, and with each new chapter of Deltarune, I continue to be blown away. Then there are the ways this system is tied into the narrative. I already mentioned how the themes of pacifism can be seen in the battle screen, but there's some other cool instances too. When Asgore destroys the mercy button, it's an impactful moment, not just because it's something that's been your lifeline for the whole game, but because it solidifies that this is a fight to the death, where mercy isn't an option. Now that I think about it, Undertale really likes to remove UI elements for dramatic effect, like the Azrael fight ending in the destruction of all but one button, or the Omega Flowey fight that just removes any semblance of the battle system you're familiar with, and just throws you headfirst into the chaos. But, TLDR, I think the combat's fun. Okay, so how many of you guys played through the game knowing that you were supposed to spare everything? Or worse, watched a fucking Let's Play?
Alphys posted a picture. Dinner with the girlfriend. Wait, I thought Alphys was a girl.
Then it's possible that you haven't seen many of the neutral endings. These are outcomes to the game where you usually killed a random encounter or major NPC, and get to see the consequences this has on the underground. There are like 93 of these, and some of them are just stomach churning. I'm personally a big fan of the one where the annoying dog becomes leader of the underground. Personally, I think he should run for office in the real world. I'm sure he can't be much worse than what we've got going on now. Point is, Undertale is a dense game, and the neutral endings are far from the only example. Did you know once you hang out with Papyrus, call him at almost any time, and he has unique dialogue for almost every screen in the game? Did you know if you spare Undyne, she'll join Papyrus on these calls, providing another set of unique dialogue across the entire game? Did you know there's unique dialogue for naming yourself after existing characters at the beginning of the game? Did you know you can find Flowey stalking you throughout the game? Did you know you can change the spare color text to pink and make the game really hard on yourself for like no reason? Did you know that if you kill Toriel and then go back to sleep, a unique track will play? Did you know, if your system clock is set to October 10th at 8 AM or 8 PM, you can enter the art club room to encounter the secret boss, So Sorry? Did you? Did you? Did you? And don't even get me started on this sick fuck. I'm Wingaster, the royal scientist. Okay, but who are you? I had to explain why Gaster was so important to a friend recently, and I need you to understand how difficult that is to do without sounding genuinely insane. I could explain fun values and the goners and the sound test and the mystery man and the other guy, but like, if you picked up Undertale right now and played it start to finish, 99% of the time you will see no indication of this character's existence. Toby Fox put this in purely to fuck with us, and foreshadow Deltarune probably. Either way, this is completely batshit, and really harkens back to those playground video game rumors, only replace L is real with undefined eldritch horror. This might be the element of Undertale that needs the least introduction. Toby Fox's songs are certified bops, and one of the pillars holding up this game's emotional storytelling. Tricky Tony is pretty notorious for his use of leitmotifs, musical phrases associated with themes and/or characters that reoccur throughout the whole soundtrack, and they all function as an emotional gunshot at point-blank range. Toby explained in an interview that the use of leitmotifs was a deliberate choice made to invoke nostalgia in the player. There's a reason why when you hear a snippet of Toriel's battle theme in the fight against Asgore, it'll hit you in the feels. It's also just fun to have musical ideas introduced. And then developed. Especially when it helps tie characters or ideas together, helping make the world feel more interconnected. I already know some of you guys are going to be curious what my favourite tracks in the game are. The answer is Long Elevator, by the way. But, for real, I like these ones. Undertale's music is just one of the many aspects of the game that received praise back in the day. But how did people react to Undertale as a whole back then? Undertale, much like its Kickstarter, kind of just exploded. Some of the biggest names in the gaming industry were scrambling just to put their quotes in the accolades trailer. Gaming outlets were questioning if every game should be considering non-violent options. This shit got in the hands of the Pope! I remember just after its release, within like a month, the internet was flooded with Undertale content of all types. The most prominent were probably Let's Plays. Your Jacksepticeye's, your Game Grumps.
Damn.
Did you know that snails sometimes flip their digestive systems as they mature? Interesting.
What does that mean?
It means they shit out their mouth.
Are you serious?
I think Jacksepticeye's one in particular has a very nostalgic quality to it. Also, remember when he just took like a 3-minute long piss break in the middle of the video?
I gotta go pee! I'll be back in a sec. Sorry!
It's really interesting to look back and see how a lot of the voice headcanons for the characters formed. Because like, everyone says that people just intuited how these characters speak, but I think there was some weird cultural osmosis that happened with these Let's Play videos.
No! You planned it all! You're way better at dating than I am!
There are so many videos of people playing Undertale for the first time, which is really interesting to me since Undertale is a terrible Let's Play game. It's clearly a game you're intended to play through multiple times, and back when the daily 20-minute gaming video economy was at its height, that just wasn't really feasible. It's why you saw, and honestly still see, fans essentially spoil the true pacifist route. A YouTuber kills a few froggets at the beginning of the game, and they've unknowingly locked themselves out of the entire third act of the main story, and probably won't bother replaying all of it just to get back to that point. It's the sort of thing that put Markiplier off doing videos of the game, and I honestly don't blame him. And before you say anything, I don't really want to reopen 10-year-old fandom discourse. The Undertale fandom at its prime was the target of a lot of ridicule and cruelty at its height, and I think that sort of cringe culture bullshit should really be left in the past. I think most of the people who were most vocal about Undertale at the time were still kids, and most of them have mellowed out, and it's made Deltarune discussion a lot more civil. But for this video to really encapsulate the first year or two after Undertale's release, I need you to know that the fandom was voracious. I was there on Amino, guys, I know what you did. And with roaring fan bases comes incredible amounts of fan work. Undertale is like a 6 to 7 hour long game at max. There is dense characterization and commentary on how we play games stuffed into that package, but it's still 6 to 7 hours. People were always going to want more. So let's talk about it. We have a lot to get through here, so I'm just going to talk about the stuff I remember and watched at the time. If I forgot any big ones, let me know in the comments below. Okay, so I'm putting this all in one section because, for one, there's a lot to get into, but also, you could put a gun to my head, and you still wouldn't be able to get me to talk about Smash Bits.
Am I right, lads, or am I right, lads?
In the peak Undertale era, YouTube was ruled by 3 beasts: the music video, the comic dub, and the animation. The music video could range from simple remixes of the game's tunes to full original animated music videos. I do really like the different tones these covered. I remember there being a lot of Kara and Sans songs, which sat more on the intense electro or rock side of things. It was insane. There was also stuff like Undertale the Musical, that one, not that one, which, certainly exists. The comic dubs varied. I remember watching a lot of compilations when I was a kid, and admittedly, I think a lot of them were just re-uploads. Comic artists back in the day covered a ton of different ideas, like interactions that take place after the game, or whatever silly jokes came to mind. Also a lot of AU stuff that, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really feel like covering in this video. I really liked Hunger Tale as a kid, which is just sort of a silly romp through the underground with Bacon the Human, but it appealed to me. And sometimes the comics were just deeply concerning. Speaking of deeply concerning,
Am I right, lads, or am I right, lads?
the animations. These varied in quality. There were a ton of animated goofs and little one-off shorts. Then there were your Sakuga level animations that were just absurdly high quality for a fandom that young. And then there were your shitposts. I think Sir Palo's Underpants is just genuinely iconic. Like maybe some of my earliest exposure to his work. I'm also just a don't touch the child enjoyer.
Don't touch my child. Stop it! Who's touching the child? Don't touch the child! Don't touch the child!
Alright, fine. I'll talk about if Undertale was realistic. Just more like if Undertale was British, to be honest.
Drinks on me, let's get smashed!
Don't get me wrong, by the way. I do have a certain soft spot for this series. It's just very much a relic of its time. I'm not the biggest fan of 2015 to 16 humor, and boy is that series certainly that. It's not off as your typical romp through the underground with everyone stopping to make jokes, but it very quickly becomes divorced from Undertale, and it's clear that they were just sort of milking it for all it's worth. There was no reason for this to be over 20 parts. They did the same thing with Minecraft Story Mode too. Who wanted this? Also, these models just give me an intense fight or flight reaction. They were made in the early days of the fandom and you can tell, and they were used everywhere too. This isn't an insult to the artist, by the way, but like, these just evoke a very specific emotion deep in my soul. Anyway, let's move on to some real Undertale fan work standouts, at least to me. Undertale Red may be the quintessential Undertale fan battle. There were tons of these back in the day, usually fights against major Undertale characters who didn't get a proper battle in the original game, OCs or versions of the cast from alternate universes. But what made this one special is that it was made fairly quickly after Undertale first released, and really set the bar for what fans could do. This fan game pits you against Red, a member of the Royal Guard who's been stalking Frisk for a while now, and has finally decided to make her move. This is a full battle, with merciful and non-merciful versions of the fight, which I think is pretty cool. This fight incorporates a lot of the base mechanics from Undertale, including the orange and blue lasers, which makes for a really hectic encounter. But the main mechanic of the fight is Red splitting the battle box into sections using her sword, a mechanic some of you may recognize from Deltarune. Yeah, well, that's because Toby Fox saw Taxidermy make this crazy ass fight like 3 months after Undertale released, and gave them a fucking job. And you know what? I can't blame him. I think it's really cool when fans are able to contribute to a project they looked up to, and Deltarune is better for it. Undertale the Musical. That one, not that one. Technically, this should have been in the YouTube section, but fuck you? So you know those video game music with lyric videos that are just everywhere these days? Well, it's certainly not the first of its kind. I'm looking at you, parental floss. I consider this project Patient Zero. Undertale the Musical aimed to give lyrics to every track of the Undertale soundtrack and squish them all together into one big movie. The final runtime is like over 4 hours, and I somehow watched this multiple times as a child. Looking back, not all of these are great. I'd say some are even bad, but there are some real highlights. The whole voice cast is fairly solid, and I can't imagine organising this many people could have been easy. I've always really liked Lindsay Bolin as Toriel. She has such a soft sincerity to her voice and really brought the character to life.
Listen well, my dear child, you're going to grow up and learn all that life will teach you. Your mother is always so proud.
I also really liked how they did a reprise of Undyne's theme specifically for the cooking date. So there's this really intense ballad about how she's fucking up making spaghetti.
Now put the noodles in homemade's better than canned, but since I'm really cheap, I just buy the store brand. Put them into the pot, drop them like they're all crooks. You're going way too slow. Hey, don't give me that look. Hey, don't give me that look. Live by the hero, both go Undyne.
I haven't even mentioned the amount of artists who contributed to the project to bring some of the bigger moments to life, or editors or lyricists. I just really love when communities come together for projects like this. Man on the Internet did a really good job putting it together, and I have really fond memories of watching new tracks get released each week. And still, I'm yet to mention one of the biggest Undertale fan works of the last few years. Alright, I'm gonna try and keep this brief because this one will be getting a full video at some point, but oh my god, it's peak. Calling Undertale Yellow a triumph would be the understatement of the fucking century. This game was cooking in the oven since around 2016, not even a full year after Undertale released. I remember following it for a while when it was first announced, and watching the initial Dark Ruins demo, which really blew me away at the time. But while there would be occasional updates, art, and trailers released, the game would be quietly chipped away at for 7 full years before finally releasing in December of 2023 to an Undertale level of praise. In Undertale Yellow, you play as the rootin' tootin' genderless child Clover, the previous human to fall into the underground before Frisk Undertale. This game is a prequel, meaning it gets to play around with a bunch of new characters, encounters, and brand new locations specific to this game. It makes playing this game blind the closest I've felt to playing Undertale for the first time again. And yes, Undertale Yellow does an incredible job at capturing Undertale's tone. The humour is great, the characters are fun but also very fleshed out, the gameplay plays around with different soul mechanics, and the music. Yo! Ah! This game came out at the perfect time. The wider Undertale Deltarune fanbase was in the middle of a massive content drought, and with the game's entry fee of $0, people were quick to hop on and talk about it. If you're an Undertale fan and still haven't played it, it's a very worthwhile experience, especially since it's free. I'd really like to see the team behind this try their hand at another game. From the sounds of things, if they do, it won't be Undertale related, which is completely fair. I wish everyone on the team good luck with whatever's next. Also, if you want to support one of the artists who worked on the game, play Figburn's Contract Rush DX. I played the demo a few months ago and it was pretty bangin'. Alright, let's wrap this up. Undertale is a game about the way we play video games, and that includes how hardwired we are to see violence in video games as the default. Although, I think, especially in the early days, too much of the discussion surrounding Undertale was on the violence versus pacifism, when in reality, that's just sort of a way to represent our choices as the player. I think the more interesting way to interpret Undertale is about engaging meaningfully with stories. Remember when I said Flowey is a mirror to the player? Well, that's the case in more ways than just having the power to save the game. His soullessness, and general disconnect from the world around him, could be seen as representing the disconnect he might feel replaying a game for the 10th or 11th time. Skipping the dialogue, being fully aware of every possibility afforded to you. In a fucked up way, this metaphor goes beyond the scope of the player. Over the last 10 years, Undertale has been mined for everything it has, and it still rewards people with new discoveries every day. But I'd argue this thirst for more is driven by love, not just for the game, but everything it represents. Undertale is not an experience to be soullessly consumed and forgotten, but rather one that sticks with everyone that's played it and, hopefully, is reflected in the way they live their life. And in that way, I like to think the Undertale fanbase has proven Flowey wrong. In this video, I've rambled a ton about Undertale's general impact and the works that it spawned, but I still haven't said much about what it means to me as an individual. I don't tend to get personal on this channel. Hell, this instance may be the first and last time. But at the time of writing this script, Toby Fox has opened a submission form, letting anyone talk about what Undertale meant to them, and it really got me thinking. What does Undertale mean to me? When Undertale came out, I was starting secondary school, and was starting to get a taste of how cruel the real world could be. I've never really been someone who matured at the same rate as everyone else. I went from a very sheltered space in my childhood to one where people were quick to mock people for being open about liking childish interests, where people had much different expectations about how someone should act or speak, and I just wasn't really able to keep up. That happening around the same time as some major changes to my life made this period really stressful, one of the worst in my life. But Undertale was, well, still is, kind of an escape from all that. It was a window into the minds of countless artists, musicians, and whatever else people put into the world. And seeing all of that was really comforting when the world around me was collapsing. Undertale was, is, and continues to be an inspiration for me in that way. One to keep drawing, writing, and cooking up those dream ideas I've been holding onto for years now. So, if it wasn't for Undertale, I don't think I'd be making stuff online at all. And I know I'm not alone in that experience. So let me know in the comments, what does Undertale mean to you? Did it change your life like it did for me and so many others? There's definitely still a lot I could talk about, although I'll probably save that for a later time, maybe whenever I get around to making a Deltarune video. But until then, stay determined, and I'll see you in the next one.